All right, folks, we are going to go ahead and get started today. So my name is Connor, and I will be presenting today, and I'm joined by my colleague, Carly, and she will be answering any questions that we have as we move through the presentation today. So if you do have something as we're moving through, feel free to shoot that into the Q&A box in your WebEx, and she'll be answering those, and then we will open it up for questions at the end as well. And I would also like to introduce Arthur Wilson from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. He will be doing some of the presentation as we move in, so we'll be hearing from him directly in a little bit here. All right, so a quick overview of what we're going to do today. We're going to do a little bit of an introduction for anybody that's not familiar with Meraki right now, talk a little bit about cloud-managed IT. Then we're going to talk to Arthur about the deployment at Florida Department of Environmental Protection. We're going to do a little bit of a live demo and actually see their network. And then we'll talk a little bit about the Meraki solution and wrap up with next steps and, as I mentioned, Q&A. All right, one thing I do want to lead off with, any IT professionals on this call do qualify for a free Meraki MR33 AP with a 3-year cloud-managed license. So at the end of this, be sure to claim your free device. If you've not connected with your Meraki rep, do make sure you reach out either to them or wait for them to reach out within the next week, and they'll just verify all of the shipping information and get that access point in your hands. So keep an eye out for that. If you are connected with your Meraki rep, do make sure to touch base with them. Otherwise, they'll be reaching out to you shortly. All right, a little bit about Cisco Meraki. So again, for anybody that's not familiar with Cisco Meraki, we have been around for about 12 years now, and we started as a small project out of a dorm room at MIT. And originally, it was just essentially a wireless connectivity between dorm rooms, and since then we've grown to include a full stack of networking technology. So we've added switches and security appliances. At that point we were acquired by Cisco Systems and became the cloud networking group within Cisco, and since then we've added VoIP phones, physical security cameras, and our EMM systems manager for mobility management. We're the leader in cloud-managed IT, and we are one of Cisco's fastest-growing portfolios since that acquisition at the end of 2012. And now, like I said, about 12 years later from that start in a dorm room at MIT, we've got over 250,000 unique customers, over 3.5 million Meraki devices online worldwide, and over 5.5 million active Meraki dashboard users. So a little bit about our out-of-band cloud management. There's a couple of points that we like to make very early on for anybody that's new to this cloud management, and one is that it's intuitive. It's a simple browser-based dashboard that's very easy to navigate, and like I said, we will get into that in the live demo and show you around a little bit, but it is cloud-hosted, so it's accessible from your mobile device, from a tablet, from anywhere in the world that you have access to the internet. It's also scalable, so we've got clients ranging from mom-and-pop shops that have a couple of devices that are connecting every day, all the way up through multinational corporations that have campuses or sites across the globe. So very scalable, and adding a device takes minutes. The way that we configure devices, you can do everything right from the dashboard, and you can do it before anything arrives. So there's no pre-staging, there's no CLI or wireless controller. Everything is done through the dashboard, and so you can easily clone a template or create a new configuration, and as soon as the device arrives, you plug it in, and when it goes online, it uploads that setting, and you're good to go. So in terms of scaling up and adding new devices, it's very simple. It's also very reliable. So we've got multiple data centers around the globe. Just in case of any type of failure, we've got that backup option. We have a 4.9 uptime SLA, and we're secure. So one of the things that I like to mention that ties between security and reliability is that we provide automatic firmware and security updates. So because we're a cloud-managed dashboard, everything can be pushed on your schedule, and it's live updates. So there's no need to go in and download some software and then go and install that into the hardware. Everything is just pushed right through the cloud out to the devices. So it allows for you to have high uptime, you to have live updates whenever those happen. And then the other piece along security is that no user traffic passes through the cloud. That's a big one, and I know especially in public sector, that's something that's of concern. I used to actually work with, when I first started at Meraki, with government agencies in Arizona and New Mexico, so I know that's a big piece of it and a big piece of the conversation. But again, no user traffic actually passes through the cloud. It's all the management that happens in the cloud. Everything else stays local to your network. We're fully HIPAA and PCI compliant, and we actually have third-party security audits and daily penetration testing. So it's something we take extremely seriously. And if you want to read more, there's actually a great section of our website, meraki.cisco.com/trust, that link there at the bottom of the screen. And it'll dive into this in more detail, but if anybody's interested, definitely check that out because it is a good bit of information for you. All right, so Meraki for state and local government IT teams. One thing I'd like to mention to you, I've stated that we've got a number of different networks all around the globe, right? That also includes across all different verticals. So for me, I sold into public sector. I worked with governments and education system, but we sell into corporations, as I mentioned, commercial industry. So how is it specific to government and IT teams? There are more reasons than these, but a couple of things that we've highlighted and a couple of pain points that we frequently see when talking to customers. One of those is time efficiency. So, with a smaller team, you have the ability to spend more time on strategic initiatives and go after something that's, more worthwhile to growing that government and really benefiting the citizens of the community. In our case today, talking about state parks, it's having that extra time is very beneficial. Improved security and uptime. Again, I just mentioned this on the last slide, but we've got 24/7 uptime. We've got that 4.9 SLA, connectivity to all of your different sites across any type of geographic region, which we'll see when we dive into Arthur's network. Better connectivity, so supporting high density and remote environments with built-in location analytics. So you know what's going on, how your network's being used, where people are moving through different locations, let's say in the park, and being able to make sure that they have the best possible experience, and then rapid deployment. So again, pre-configuring those products before they arrive. As soon as everything shows up, you plug it in and you're off and running. There's no pre-staging, there's no CLI, as I mentioned, no wireless controller. It's all very simple and very intuitive. So we work with a number of different governments across North America, but today we are going to focus on Florida State Parks and Arthur Wilson. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce Arthur. Arthur, if you don't mind just telling us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about the Florida Department of Environmental Protection.
Sure. Thank you very much, Connor. Arthur Wilson, as you mentioned. I've got about 30-plus years between public, military, state government services, and that's spanning anywhere from networking, telecommunications, just a variety of different disciplines within IT. Well, just to talk about Florida Department of Environmental Protection a little bit, we have a very dedicated group of rangers, biologists, environmental engineers, and park managers throughout all of our parks here in the state of Florida. And, they're tasked with protecting and responsible for our air, water, and land resources across the state. We roughly have about 175 plus parks. The headquarters for our IT location is it's located in Tallahassee, Florida. So our network spans out throughout the state. The majority of it is hubbed right here in Tallahassee. We manage that entire network with a small team of about 5 or 6 engineers. And again, they take care of all the networking functionality, the infrastructure. We do provide voice services and telecommunications services for each of the varying sites. We do have a major project that we are working on, and that's to look at all of that infrastructure and see how we could pretty much manage it. Originally, it was all unmanaged.
Awesome. Thank you, Arthur. So if we dive into your deployment and what the project and what everything looks like, let's start at the ground roots. Can you just tell us a little bit about why Meraki? What led you to Meraki, and then what ultimately sold you on it? Because as we see here, you've got it deployed across the whole state of Florida. So, what was it about Meraki, and how did you end up kind of taking this route ultimately?
Yeah, exactly, Connor. Our challenging story is built around, as I mentioned, the majority of the network was really unmanaged. I'd say 75 to 80% of it. And it is throughout the entire state of Florida, so that poses a challenge in itself right there. what we really focused on was we knew we had to move in another direction, which is more managed equipment, so we had to focus on deployment. How are we going to deploy these out? And also for management, how are we going to manage all of these individual sites? And of course, being state government, another number one concern was cost. What is that impact going to be to our budget, if you will? So looking at the management area, I knew there I wanted to make sure we have that single pane of glass. No matter what the resource, no matter what the technology, I wanted it to be bundled into a single pane of glass, because I do have all of these other technology areas, so that would minimize that tool set and minimize the day-to-day management for the technicians. Speaking of tools, I wanted to make sure that we have a tool set that was all combined as well. Again, minimizing the overhead of having different tool sets, deploying products for those tool sets, or having that knowledge base for those individual tool sets. And that's pretty much was the management challenge portion of it. When we talk about the deployment challenge that we had, I wanted to make sure that we could quickly deploy things. Some scenarios throughout the parks, we're based in Tallahassee. If you look all the way down, there's Key West at the other end. For us, that's already 8, 10, 12 hours of travel time, so the time is going to be limited there as well. So I had to have a mechanism or a way to deploy and minimize that time also.
That's quite the trip, quite the journey from Tallahassee down to Key West. And I know we covered this a little bit when we were talking, Arthur, but how many different within the single organization of the Florida DEP, how many different networks do you have deployed? I know this isn't all of them, because some of these there's multiple within each of these arrows, but do you know off the top of your head how many networks you have?
It's probably in the area of 180 or so, not too many more. The Park Service really covers a big portion of our networks.
So that's one of the things I love to highlight. I think your story is great, Arthur, in the sense that the single pane of glass, right? The single organization, you have almost 180 different networks across the state of Florida that you have access to and can control right from Tallahassee. Now, you can always go on site if you need to. You obviously have that option, but being able to see what's going on and monitor your network, configure your network from Tallahassee is a pretty cool story, in my opinion.
That it is.
All right. So if we take a step, further in the journey, then we've got an idea of all this deployment across the state of Florida, but do you mind just telling us a little bit more about the specific deployments that you have? Some of the specific products that you have that you've seen some benefits out of and have enjoyed using.
Sure. Along the MR line, or our access points, for the Park Service, we kind of focused on the outdoors first, being that the parks are outside. We've deployed a variety of MR72s and 74s. We have a ranger station, and some of the entry points may have multiple lanes. So instead of using a hardwire infrastructure, we're using the outdoor wireless to shoot that signal out to our other different toll booths where we have visitors come in and out. We do have some deployments that are a great distance away. So the MR72s and 74s allowed us to be flexible enough to shoot a signal from 10 feet away up to a half mile. So we have some deployments that we're taking advantage of that capability that's in the product. And again, it's same pane of glass, it's easy to deploy, and it's just straightforward. Within our parks as well, for us to be PCI compliant, we wanted to kind of separate our data from our credit card processing at each of the sites as well. So the VLAN capabilities are there for us to do that. The security is also bundled in there as well. It also allowed, we took advantage of that wireless capability to allow our rangers and our park managers to, if you will, just do a drive-by to gather their IT services. So they can swing through in their vehicles, check their emails, send emails. They can just check any of their IT applications that they need to utilize on a daily basis. For the MS switches, we did deploy a number of those, the MS 220 line and as well as the 225. In our park services, we range anywhere from 5 individual users to some sites may have hundreds of users. So we had the flexibility there from the 8-port or MS 228 ports up to the 48-port line, 48-port models. So we have a variety of those deployed based on its use in the locations. So I believe that was very flexible for us as well. In deploying our switches, again, all of the sites that we had, it was easy for us. I kind of broke everything down to be more of a template base, if you will, where if I have sites, let's say our 8-port sites, and they're pretty much cookie cutter, and it gives us the ability to just take a individual site, drop it into that template configuration, and we've already put that work in up front to design and develop those templates. So once it's placed in that configuration, everything's configured and ready to go. What that did for us as well, it pulled back on the knowledge base and the in-depth networking that was required to be able to go in and configure each individual component. Going over to the MX security appliance line, we have a number of 64s and 65s deployed out as well. And we had some park sites that we could not get our private network connectivity to. So in this case, and most of you may know, we've got DSL available. We have other independent connectivity services that are out there available. We had to have a way to secure that. VPN tunnels is supported on the security appliances. What we're doing there is we're basically encapsulating that in the VPN tunnel, shipping it back into our head-in MX here in Tallahassee, and providing that service over the public internet. Now, we do have probably, I'd say, out of our sites, we're running about 40 or 50 MX sites. It did give us other advantages as well. In our network, we're consolidated here in Tallahassee where our firewalls, our security profiles, everything is built in here or centralized here. The MX appliance gave us ability to push that out and push it down to the individual park sites. And yet again, still be able to configure and manage all of that under that single pane of glass as well. So that's some of the ideas around how we deployed these 3 product lines here.
Yeah, and that's very impressive. Thank you, Arthur. What I thought was cool is we've talked a little bit, right, but kind of the overlapping of what we typically talk about when we're working with customers and what your experience is, right? So it's, like you said, it's the ability to set up these templates and easily scale this, and as you want to grow it out to additional state parks or additional locations around the state of Florida, it's a relatively quick and easy process for you. So that actually leads me right into my next question. Right now you guys are running MR, MS, and MX across the state. But my understanding is you guys have trialed some of the other product lines and are thinking even about expanding. So what does the future look like with Meraki and the Florida DEP?
For sure. I mean, our current experience is, and I'll say here too, what we've learned from the Meraki product line is that we can take that specific methodology, if you will, and the way the interface is designed, the way the deployment is designed, and kind of bundle and roll that into how we do IT every day. So with that, it's given us the ability to kind of stretch out and move into other projects. Wireless, for example. We have another large project underway where we're looking at replacing our existing wireless infrastructure and moving it into that single pane of glass that we have for our park services, and begin to roll that out for the indoor bases on some of our other regional and district facilities that we have up as well. We had a few requests from our security departments or our building facilities where they're looking to replace an older infrastructure that they have with their cameras and DVRs and those types of things today. So we're beginning also to look at the security camera offering in the MV. That has yet to kick off, but I do see a lot of great potential there, and it fits that requirement that we have on the table for our security department as well. Network security. This is an area that's ever growing. We're in the middle of a process now where we're getting the opportunity to revamp our entire network infrastructure. So we've got the advantage of looking at SD-WAN, getting our individual sites more flexible, doing some traffic profiling. As I mentioned before, for the DSL type sites, we do have security mechanism pushed down to those sites as well, but this will give us the opportunity to broaden out for all of our sites and expand our security capabilities down there, kind of decentralize our profile today. So I'm looking forward to that project. That's going to be a very, very nice one, very, very large, coming up here pretty soon. As far as the phones, again, we do offer voice infrastructure services throughout our PARP systems today as well. We evaluated the Meraki MC line of phones, voice over IP phones, and they are just spectacular. They did meet all of our criteria. We more specifically looked at integrating them into our call manager structure, being able to hang it off as a provider and still service our individual MC phones through our call manager configuration today. That trial has ended. We're waiting to go ahead and get that cranked up as well. But we do have a couple of the MC phones that are just operating over voice over IP standalone today that are doing very well.
Fantastic, man! You have your hands full, Arthur. I'm quite impressed. But I think one of the things that's cool too is the ability, as you explore these other projects, expanding out on the phone deployment, looking at security cameras. It's the ability just to really add these to your existing dashboard, right? It doesn't require anything new. It's not a new dashboard. It's something you're already familiar with. So I think that scalability is something that is definitely beneficial. Well, what I want to do now is I'll take you off blast for a minute, Arthur. I'm actually going to pull up the dashboard and give you guys just a look into it. Again, for anybody who hasn't seen it, what we're going to do is we're going to look at actually Arthur's dashboard. He's been generous enough to let us take a peek at it and kind of move around as a guest. So what we're looking at right now is a high-level overview of Arthur's network, right? So I can quickly see a map of where all the networks are. If I expand out this list, I can actually see the names of all of the different networks that we've got. So all of these state parks across the state of Florida. And I can quickly see some very high-level information. So, what usage looks like at any one of these networks. I can see how many clients are connected to that network. I can see what the network health looks like. And I can easily come in here and really create this view or this list to be what I want. So if I want to see it firmware and security are up to date, or if I want to see, repeater APs, I can quickly come in here and adjust different pieces, and I can reorganize this list. And the great thing is this is live data. So it's showing me, what's going on, what's happening. And again, this is a single organization, a single dashboard. But we're looking at all of these different networks across the state. So if I specifically search one, like let's look at Honeymoon Island here, I can now dive into a specific network. And so if we're looking at Honeymoon Island, over here on the left, you're going to see that they're running switching and wireless there right now. If they added anything else, like a security camera or phones, that would just grow out this list along the left side. But when I initially click into the dashboard on any one of these given networks, I'm going to see a high-level overview, and it's going to show me, hey, in the last day, this is what our traffic looks like. We had a peak in the afternoon. It dipped down throughout the middle of the night, and then picked back up in the morning, and you see a spike throughout the days as there's more traffic joining the network. I can see what applications are being run. So I actually have layer 7 visibility and can see what kind of traffic is actually being passed through different applications on my network. And then I can see all of the devices. So in the last 24 hours or the last day, we've had 20 different client devices connected. And I can come in here and I can actually select one and dive into the specific device. So we've just moved from a very high-level state look at 180 or so networks for the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, now into a specific device on the Honeymoon Island network. Now, when I'm looking at this device, there's a lot of different information that I'm going to see. I can see, what the status is, so when it first associated, what SSID it's connected to if you have multiple SSIDs set up for, let's say, guests versus employees of the state parks. I can see what access point they're actually connected to. So if I have multiple access points set up in a given building, I can see which one they're connected to. And then I can see specific traffic information for this given device. So now I can see that layer 7 visibility in terms of what applications are being run on this specific device. Now, if I had any issue with what was going on, I can do things like come in and assign a device policy. Maybe I want to assign a group policy, and you can easily configure these within the dashboard. And I could say, hey, maybe this user is using too much Facebook, so I want to set up a group policy that says no social media, or social media should be, a lower bandwidth usage so that it's not bogging down my network. I can apply that group policy. Or maybe it's an unknown device or somebody that's just up to no good, and I could block them, enter in a note, CIT team, and then if they try and access my network, they're going to get this notification. So it's very easy to come in here and make different changes, configurations, assign policies right within the dashboard. Now, one of the things I like to highlight, and I hit on this a little bit earlier when we were looking at that list of networks, is that this is a living, breathing look into my network. This is all live. So I'm sitting in San Francisco. Like I said, Arthur has given us guest access, but we're looking at this live network down in Florida, and I can navigate through this a number of different ways. So if I want, I can come over here and just jump into my list of switches, jump into my list of access points, but you'll see that you can flow through the dashboard in different ways. So if I want, I could come in here and say, hey, let's look at the topology, and this is actually going to show me what the flow of traffic looks like. So here's that access point that we're connected to from that device we were looking at, and then the flow of traffic back through the switch, ultimately through the security appliance and out to the internet. And so I can navigate into one of these. Let's click into the actual device here. And this is one of those MRT4s that Arthur was mentioning, the outdoor access points. But now I'm looking at the specific device, or excuse me, piece of hardware that the device is connected to. So I can quickly see, hey, there's 3 other clients connected. I can see what historical data looks like. I can see what the usage on this specific access point looks like. And then I can do things like run these live tools. And let's say I want to ping the device, or maybe I want to blink the LEDs. If I'm not on site, but somebody is, I can say, hey, look for the access point in the northwest corner of the building that's blinking, and they can quickly see it. I can run a throughput test or a trace route. I have the ability to run these troubleshooting tools, and this is where Arthur was saying, sitting in Tallahassee, he doesn't necessarily have to drive down to Key West for a simple issue that maybe could be resolved right from these troubleshooting tools. Now, I'm going to jump back into the summary view. I'm going to navigate into one of these devices. So now we're looking at the client device on this access point. We're going to jump back into the topology view. And now I'm going to navigate into the switch that the traffic's being passed through. So if I click into it, I can quickly see similar information to the access point, but obviously specific to the switch. So, what ports are being used, what ports are passing power. And I can configure these ports. I can see what clients are connected to this switch. And I've got all this data very easily accessible. Now, there's a couple of different features that I like to highlight when we're looking at the dashboard. One of those is under wireless, you have the ability to run this location heat map. And I think this is a pretty cool analytical tool. I can pick and choose certain times and dates. But what I can do is if we just use the last 24 hours or so, we can run a video of this heat map, and it's going to show me, hey, at Honeymoon Island here, there are 2 access points set up. And if I run the heat map, we're going to see, hey, there was a spike in traffic around 4 or 5 p.m., and then it died off towards the middle of the night. You'll see it's pretty quiet as we hit the middle of the night and early morning hours. And then as people start to come back to the park, as more people are starting to connect to the network, you're going to see traffic pick back up. And you're going to see these location heat maps intensify. Now, the way people have used this, and when I was, as I said, on the sales side and working with clients, I had existing clients that would use this tool, and they would reconfigure access points in terms of where they were deployed. So I have one vivid memory that I was working with a government, and they had, I think, 5 access points set up in one of their buildings, and they had it really focused or concentrated at one end of the building where most of the offices were. But the funny thing is the conference room at the other end only had one access point, but they had a lot of meetings. So there was a lot of traffic there, especially in the afternoons. And so what they did is they removed one of the access points from the office end of the building and moved it down to the conference end, just so that they could distribute the traffic across multiple APs and increase the user experience. So this gives us an idea to see where the flow of traffic is, how we might want to deploy things. This can also help with issues like security. Maybe there's a spike around 4 or 5 o'clock every day, so we should make sure that we have a security guard or a park ranger on site at those times. So different analytics like this are accessible right from the dashboard. And again, this is live, so we're looking at it right up until basically current time in Florida, which is, almost 1 p.m. over there, or 2 p.m.?
Yep.
Another feature that I like to highlight is just under organization here, you have the ability to take a look at location analytics. I'll do this one really quick because it's similar to the heat map. But again, this shows me what traffic looks like. So I could be wrong, but I was looking at this earlier, Arthur, and it seems logical, but it seems like, there's a spike in traffic on Saturdays, right? If people don't have to work necessarily, if they're working Monday through Friday, so they're taking the day to come out into the sunny Florida state parks and get some fresh air. So I would have to guess that Saturdays are probably busier days in the state parks, but you can see that now with these location analytics and see kind of where you have peaks and valleys, and again, how you might want to assign different network usage or physical personnel on site. The last piece I'm going to cover, though, is under the organization here, the ability to see a summary report. Now, we're just looking at this for the last day, but what this is going to show me really quickly is what the usage looks like. So what kind of data is being transferred, whether that's downloaded or uploaded. It's going to show me what the port utilization looks like. So if I have a bunch of unused ports, or maybe which ports are being used. I can see total client usage, so how many different clients were connected and who were the top users. Maybe there's 1 or 2 individuals that are consistently using the most bandwidth. I can quickly see that. I can see the top SSIDs by usage. Again, if there's maybe the guest network is getting the most traffic, then we want to focus some more of our attention and resources there. See top devices. And really, I can just see a quick snapshot in the last 24 hours or custom time length, however you want to set that, of my network. And then I can quickly just come in here and say, hey, I want to export this to Excel for my own records, or maybe I want to shoot out an email to a colleague or a supervisor and just let them know, hey, everything's functioning fine. Here's a quick overview. So this is very much a 30,000-foot view into what the dashboard looks like, and in particular into Arthur's organization and Honeymoon Island here. But one other thing to show you is how quick we can move between different networks. So just to show you, if I jump into Troy Springs here, into the state park, they're running a security appliance here, so it's a little bit different in the sense that you don't see the menu options for wireless or switching, but we've just now moved into a completely different network in a completely different state park, and now we're looking at the security appliance, and we can dive into configuring this, troubleshooting this, setting up any policies or settings that we need, and it's as simple as that. So Arthur has the capability to be at his office in Tallahassee, where they're headquartered, and navigate to any one of these state parks and make adjustments to his network. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and jump back into our presentation here. And we've got just a couple more slides to run through, and then I'm going to open it up to questions. I know Carly's been answering questions, but I just want to run through them at the end here and see if there's anything that we may have missed or that might be specifically for Arthur. And so we'll do that after a couple more slides here. So just bear with me, and then we'll bring Arthur back on. All right, so a quick recap. That's pretty much what we have left to go through. Meraki offers the full stack. So we've got MR, MX, and MS being our access point security appliances and access and aggregation switches. And that's currently what the Florida Department of Environmental Protection is running. They're looking at the MV security cameras, as Arthur mentioned, and the VoIP phones, the MC communications. And then finally, it's Systems Manager, which is our enterprise mobility management. And that really, we took a look at a specific device and how you could block that device, but Systems Manager gives you the next level of control. So I use this a lot with my K-12 customers. They had particular interest in it just because they were using school-issued devices with their students. But it doesn't mean that, it's not a good use case for governments in this case. So definitely worth taking a look at. Again, all 6 of these product lines are managed from that single dashboard. As you add more product lines, it just grows out your dashboards. It's not necessarily having to create a new login or going to a new place. And one of the benefits of that is our 24/7 support has access, if you grant it, like Arthur's granted me this access to the dashboard. And so, if you're having an issue with one of your access points that you can't figure out, you have access to our support team. Give them a call. When they're looking through the dashboard with you, you can see it real time as they're seeing it, and they can talk through the issue. And the best part is, if there's ever a problem, maybe it ended up being a switch problem, not an access point problem, you don't have to call another team. They can just work back to the root cause of the issue and help you out with that, because they've got visibility into your full network as you grow that out with Meraki products. So next steps before we jump into wrapping everything up with Q&A, I want to remind everybody, make sure to claim your free wireless access point. Again, that's an MR33. It's one of our indoor access points. It comes with a 3-year cloud managed license. All you have to do is get in touch with your Meraki rep. Again, if you don't know who that is, feel free to reach out to our team. We can help get you set up with your rep. If you do know who it is, reach out to them. Otherwise, they'll be in touch within the next week, and let's just make sure you get that free device. A couple of other resources for you, though. Be sure to check out our blog. It's meraki.cisco.com/blog. It's a great spot for up-to-date information. We really try and source our blog posts. It's not just a single person or a single team. We try and get our product teams involved, our sales teams involved, and really create a space for thought leadership. So the idea is that we're trying to provide different information and different way of looking at issues. We're trying to highlight customers. So the blog is a good place to get more than just Meraki promotional items. I do like our blog, so definitely check that out. We offer risk-free evaluations. Again, Arthur was doing this with the phones. We will send out gear of your choosing free of charge. You can work with our dedicated trial support team. They'll get your dashboard completely configured with you, get everything set up. You try it live in your environment. If it's a great fit, great, you keep the gear. If not, just put it back in the box it came in. We'll provide the return shipping label and you send it back. Or if you just need a different model. So that's an option, risk-free evaluation for you. And then finally, our community, community.meraki.com. This is a place where, hey, you don't have to talk to me, you don't have to talk to Carly. It's a place to interact with people like Arthur who are using Meraki now and ask questions, see what's going on, see how they're deploying it in their environment. And it's just a good way to interact with other people that are using Meraki. Whether you're a longtime Meraki user or just getting familiar and want to understand how people are using it, the community is a great resource. So with that, I am going to open it up to questions. So give me just a minute and I'll pull up the question doc here, see what we've got, and if there are any questions specifically for Arthur. So give me one sec here. All right, so we've got a couple of them. Looks like a couple of them came up a couple times, so we will go ahead and focus on those. I'm going to bring you back on, Arthur, so people don't have to listen to me talk all morning here. But one that we've seen a couple times, are the Florida state parks using Meraki to create a wireless mesh network for connections between buildings or, park entry booths, concessions, just kind of as you move through? I know we looked at Honeymoon Island, and there were a couple of different access points, and some of the parks have more. So are you creating a wireless mesh network with those?
Actually, yes, we are. Some scenarios are a point-to-point network where we only have 2 devices to connect several buildings together. But we do have some areas where we have 3 or more locations where I'm actually creating a mesh, and I don't do it. Meraki actually does it automatically. And Connor, you can talk about that feature a little bit more. But yes, we do have some meshes that are going on with our outdoor and our indoor APs.
Fantastic, fantastic. Carly was just showing me another one. Have you ever had a case where a device has lost power and internet, it's for whatever reason lost complete connectivity, and then when it comes back on, it's just fired right back up for you? Meraki devices, if you lose power, the device will go down, right? That's true with any device. But when the power comes back on and it fires back up, it's going to just reconnect where it was. It's going to pull any of those settings down. So even if it, for whatever reason, was a hard shutdown, failure, or something where you had to flip the power it's not going to completely reset. It's going to, if there is any issue, it's just going to reconnect to the internet and it's going to pull the configurations down. Now, one thing about that is if you lose internet connectivity but not necessarily power, what's going to happen is you're going to lose functionality to reconfigure the device, but local traffic will continue to pass. So, if the internet goes down, you don't have the ability to use some of the tools the dashboard is accessing because it is cloud-based. But at that point, the bigger issue is getting your internet back online, and in the meantime, local traffic will continue to pass through the network. All right, so here's one for you, Arthur. Do you provide wireless for visitors or just employees?
That's always a good question. Currently today, we only provide wireless for our staff and DEP employees. However, in that project for wireless we have, that's definitely one thing that we're beginning to review and looking at our requirements for that. So hopefully in the near future.
Okay. I was just testing you. I'm planning my trips to Florida, so. Have you ever experienced any issues with outdoor units overheating in the heart of summer in Florida?
So one of the things, we have varying conditions in a lot of our facilities. As you know, they may be close to the beach, they're in the parks, so the temperatures can range anywhere where the equipment is from 90 degrees to 120 degrees, and it varies throughout the day. So we do have harsh environments and we have very controlled climate environments, and I've had no failures in the last 2 years for any piece of equipment that we have deployed out there at all. We've gone through hurricanes over the last couple of years, and I greatly will say that Meraki equipment has weathered the storm.
So another question is, it's come through in a couple of different ways, but it's not necessarily a specific question and more just your experience. Do you mind talking a little bit more about your experience with the MX security appliances and how you're running kind of those VPN tunnels and passing traffic from all of the different state parks back through the hub in Tallahassee?
Sure, most definitely. In fact, the way we're set up is kind of a special configuration. It's a little outside of the CAN configuration. With that being said, we had to engage Meraki and ask them to make a special concession for us. And it was done immediately. It was done right away, working directly with the engineer and the support desk. Basically, what we're doing is we have a Meraki peer as a hub, and we also have a non-Meraki peer as a hub. By default, the Meraki peer would automatically join that auto VPN capability, which would set up a VPN. And for those of you who work with VPNs, you know how cumbersome it can be when you're getting your initial VPN set up. You go through your parameters, set everything up, check both ends, swap your keys, make sure everything works. And if you've got 100 of those to do, you've got to do it 100 more times. Here, you do it once, and every other VPN you have to establish is done automatically just from dropping in the template basis. So that VPN nightmare is over. With us, that special consideration as far as providing services for those non-Meraki VPN peers, we got that piece of the code added in, and now it too falls within the same parameters of the auto VPN to where we only have to do it once, and you add all other sites in and they'll join in automatically, all with the same parameters. So that made life a little bit easier when it comes to setting up VPNs. So we have a couple of different flavors out there, but for me, the best part was the auto VPN functionality and the template-based piece of it. That saved us quite a bit in setting those VPNs up.
That's always good to hear. So that leads me into a two-part question that we've seen a few times. Part one is, not necessarily a number, but have you experienced getting time back in the day? Has this freed you up for other activities?
Well, I'd have to say no. And the reason I say no is because you know just as well as I do from being in the network industry and the network world, if we solve a problem and we move things off, there's guaranteed to have another one that's going to backfill its place. But in all fairness, yes, the capabilities of the single pane of glass, the ease of deployment, the template-based functionality, yes, it has given us more time back because now I don't have to babysit the entire network. It's pretty much done automatically. It has the alerting capabilities, SNMP functionality, API integration into the dashboard that can give me alerts and signals when something wrong and I need to go and give it attention. But other than that, yes, it has freed up tons of time for our team. But again, there's always another challenge and another mission out there for supporting the good people of Florida.
Exactly. Well, and San Francisco, you know, if we come to visit, right?
Sure, exactly.
So part two of the question then is, you know, even though maybe it's not necessarily free time, because I do know you're very busy, like you said, there's always more projects. What of those projects that, not having to have the day-to-day and really being bogged down with that, what project are you most excited about? I know we talked about a few Meraki projects with looking at the phones and security cameras, but even if it's not Meraki, you know, that's part two. What are you excited about with some of that additional time, those other projects you get to look at?
Oh, certainly. Hands down, it's going to be the SD-WAN technology. Delving off into that, looking at it from a Meraki perspective or any other vendor that's out there, taking that and meshing it with our telecommunications services. You know, it has multiple layers to it, but making sure that we get all of those layers in line to come up with that overall architecture, that overall design. And I think based on the tool sets that we have today and the mission we're on, it's going to make life a little bit easier, and I think everything will mesh together a little bit better. So really the biggest project for me is undertaking SD-WAN and pushing this network as far as we can push it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm excited for you. Just living in this world, so I'm glad that we were able to help with that. One question I've seen come up a couple times that I'll just go ahead and answer is around the security and firmware updates and just updates to the networks. Again, this has come up a few times, so I just wanted to highlight it, but that is completely up to you as the user. So you can schedule different updates. You have the ability to say, hey, I don't want 1 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, or I guess Sunday, is when I want these updates to be pushed out, just in case, you know, any kind of network slowdown. I don't want that to happen during peak hours. So you have complete control over that within your dashboard. The other thing is, if for any reason, you know, we roll out a feature up and you don't like it, you want to go back to the old version, you can roll back an update. So we do give that option as really just something that makes the dashboard as flexible and customizable to your needs. All right, well, you know, there are a couple more questions, but it looks like most of them are of the same vein that we've kind of gone over. So I just want to thank everybody for jumping on today. I want to especially thank you, Arthur. I really appreciate your time. It was great having this chat. So thank you, everybody, and looking forward to talking to you. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out, and we'll be more than happy to help.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Connor.
All right, have a good one, Arthur. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.